Hi, I'm David Hakimi with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Today I'm here with Kim Clancy of Mindful Mortgage. We're going to talk about today the top 10 things to consider when moving to Erie, Colorado.
My favorite topic.
My favorite topic. Yeah,
Okay.
we're both a little biased. We both live here in Erie.
Sure.
I've been here a little over 10 years. You've been here how long?
14.
14. You got me beat a little bit. Yeah, so we're both, Erie's near and dear to both of us, I think. So we can't say anything bad about it. You couldn't drag my wife out of here with a team of horses. I think you're pretty well entrenched here too. So it's a great suburb. We're going to talk about a few of the things that make it so. Number one, it's really centrally located. It's probably the most centrally located of all the Denver suburbs. And when I say centrally located, I'm going to refer to my notes here. It's 32 miles to Denver International Airport, 25.5 miles to downtown Denver, 14.8 miles to Boulder. Fort Collins is only 45.3 miles. We're probably the northernmost suburb, in civilization before it starts to get a little bit rural. And then it is 37.6 miles to the Denver Tech Center. So probably not the best commute to DTC.
Agreed.
If you're going to live in DTC, you just don't belong in the North End in general. Mm-hmm. So Erie probably wouldn't be something on your map if your new job is in the Denver Tech Center. We can talk later about the places that would be appropriate if DTC is your commute. But really everything else, downtown Denver, Boulder, Denver International, they're all super easy from here. In fact, we're probably the best mix of being close to all three of those of any other suburb. And we're right on the 470 tollway as well. So if you do need to go to DIA, it's a straight shot out there, or you can take it in the other direction to Boulder. So we sit right there on it, easy to get just about anywhere from here.
So we do want to still talk about some of the apprehensions that we hear from people coming in, because we do have a ton of people moving into Erie from out of state. So, unfortunately, we do have some things that it doesn't suit everybody.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things I think, and the biggest apprehension I hear from people, is our fracking here.
Yep, I would agree with that.
And especially Weld County side, because Weld County side is an oil and gas distribution.
Yeah, and the Boulder County side had a moratorium on oil and gas production for several years. So by the time most of that stuff was already developed out, there wasn't a whole lot of place left for the oil and gas producers to buy to drill. So the Boulder County side has a little bit less than the Weld County side for sure.
And I do think that, if you look online and you read some stuff about fracking, people just, especially from out of state, really have a hard time with that.
Yep.
I have not, you have not, but
Well, if you look at it, from a matter of fact standpoint, Erie sits on one of the largest shale deposits in North America. And that's why if you go down in Old Town Erie, everything down there is the Miners Tavern, the Miners this, everything's miners, because Erie was one of the biggest coal mining communities in Colorado in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And of course, a lot of that coal is still here, and now they're trying to cook coal and shale, and they're trying to frack it. So, it's just
something to be aware of.
Yeah, you got to be aware of it.
Read up on and figure out if it suits you.
So if you don't want any oil and gas productivity anywhere around you, Erie might not be the best place, but, for the most part, it is one of the fastest growing suburbs. So it doesn't seem to bother too many most people. But if you're sensitive to it, you might look into that a little further and do your research on it.
Agreed. And then another reason that it's, of course, one of the best places to be is that you can get a big house and you get more bang for your buck.
Yeah, I would agree. Out of all the northwest suburbs, butting up to Boulder, it's definitely the best bang for the buck from a cost per square foot standpoint and for what you get for the money. In fact, and a lot of that goes hand in hand with the fact that we're right on the edge of town, so most of the new construction is here, and the trend in new construction over the last 10, 20 years has been bigger. Unfortunately, McMansions are in, so you definitely get a much bigger house here than any of the other suburbs that are a close commute to Boulder.
Well, because we had the most amount of open space, right? Yeah. So if you think about somewhere like Superior, Louisville, they were already built up. We did it. We weren't. And so now we are able to buy.
Yeah, and a lot of those areas were built 30, 40 years ago before the trend started going toward bigger construction. I've actually got the numbers here. I'm going to refer to my notes a little bit and just put it in perspective. The cost per square foot here in Erie averages $281 a square foot. Or if you look at all the other northwest suburbs, and when I say all the other northwest suburbs, I'm talking about Broomfield, Lafayette, Louisville, Superior, and of course Boulder itself. Average cost per square foot in those is $399 a square foot. So $281 a square foot here in Erie versus $399 average. Significant. It's $100 a square foot lower here than it is in any of the other suburbs that are a good commute to Boulder. So
and our homes are more new, right? So that you have to take that into consideration. We're cheaper per square foot, but newer.
Cheaper, newer.
Yeah.
New problems have less. New homes have less problems.
Right.
Old houses have old house problems. I mean, there's nothing wrong with an older house. Sometimes people think they have more character, but they got more upkeep as well too. If you want new, modern layout, good current architecture, new finishes, and everything brand new. Not to mention the new construction is way more efficient. The government energy efficiency standards have been updated every year to require higher and higher and higher efficiency. So even though these new houses are much bigger, quite frankly, they have lower utility bills than some of the old houses that weren't sealed as well. So if you want a big house and a new house, Erie is probably bar none the best place to get it here along the Front Range.
Agreed.
Or the northern northwest suburbs of the Front Range.
Yeah.
So what next?
Well, what's next is we're going to talk a little bit about another apprehension.
Yeah.
And this is kind of, a big one that we hear, but that you and I, again, have no experience in.
Yeah, well, and I lived right by it. What is it?
The landfill.
The landfill. Yeah, the landfill is the 800-pound gorilla in the room.
Yes.
The landfill, unfortunately, Erie, or the city, or the waste management built that landfill, 50 years ago? I think it's been going for a long time. And you got to remember, 25 years ago, Erie wasn't here yet. Yeah. So this was out in the country. It was the middle of nowhere 25 years ago. As Denver grew and people realized, hey, this is good proximity to Boulder. It's basically the next piece of land to build on. It got built around. So they probably wouldn't have built that landfill if the topic came up today, but it was already there, and they're not going to get rid of it until it's closed out. I will say there were a series of 3 that were in a row. 2 of those 3 have already been capped off and retired, and they are talking about capping off and completing this one. Yeah, every few years they announce that it's getting closer to completion. I think we're probably in the last 5 or 6 years.
Right.
Don't hold me to that. Do your own research on that. But what I understand is that last active landfill is pretty close to being wound up.
Okay. But I mean, in all honesty, like we've talked about, I mean, again, it's just people's personal preference because we have a ton of people that live in Vista Ridge and that's backed up against it. It doesn't affect them. When you drive by, you don't smell trash or see trash flying or anything like that.
But, no. It really doesn't affect the neighborhood.
No.
Maybe the last few rows of streets that are back in the back that butt up against it, the property values are affected there. Those last few streets do sell a little cheaper than the streets in the interior, but I can tell you don't have to get more than about 3 streets in from it before it's a non-issue. Yeah. And Vista Ridge is a big neighborhood too, and Vista Ridge isn't the only neighborhood that butts up against it, by the way, but Vista Ridge is over 2.5 miles from end to end, so technically you can be in Vista Ridge, which is the neighborhood closest to it, and still be 2.5 miles away from it. So it's not like it even affects the entire thing.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Agreed.
But if you're sensitive to that, it is a point on the landscape here in Erie. When you're coming up I-25, you can actually see it. It's like a big round mountain in the distance.
Well, that's just our ski slope up here.
It's our ski slope up there. Well, what they'll do to it eventually, once it's capped off, they'll build mountain bike trails on it like they did the other ones. Yeah. So it'll be probably phase 2 of the Erie single track once it's done.
We could use a sledding.
Or you can use it for sledding. It's a great sledding hill someday. I don't know. You might get some pretty serious terminal velocity coming down that hill. And the next topic, we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but real estate values. I mean, we are definitely the best value in the suburbs. The cost per square foot that you get here, how much house you get for the money is fantastic. It's just amazing, what you get for the money here. I move a ton of people in that are relocating into new IT jobs and engineering jobs in Boulder or Broomfield, and of course everybody initially thinks they're going to live in Boulder right next to the job until they see the prices there. Yeah, I mean $1 million in Boulder is a starter home. It's even. Yeah, I mean what you get for $1 million here, easily you get something better here in Erie for $500,000. And for what it's worth, we're only 17, 18 minutes from there. I mean, if you're on the Boulder County side of Erie, you're 15 minutes from Boulder. So really for a 15-minute commute, trading off $500,000 on the home price is pretty good trade-off for a lot of people. Where we're at, I mean, you're 10 minutes from IBM. Yeah, right. So I mean, that's super close to that. Yeah, I'm on the Boulder County side. And I can be in Boulder in just probably 13 minutes or so. Right. Yeah. Now, one of the negatives is the metro taxing districts, and that's just because we've talked so much about this. You and I have covered this a lot. But it's really just because they're new. So, you're not going to find that in Louisville, Superior, because they're not new. The neighborhoods are older. So that's kind of the negative side to new construction. New construction's fantastic, but the trend in the last 20 years has been metro taxing districts, which are basically a form of municipal financing that the developers take out so that they can put the infrastructure, the swimming pool, the community clubhouse, that sort of stuff into the neighborhood.
Right.
They borrow the money for it, and then they roll the repayment for that money back into everybody's property taxes in the neighborhood, and it comes out to about a half point more on
But it's
taxes.
everywhere, though. I mean, if you think, like, I'm going through in my head, I mean, it's in Johnstown, it's in Meade, I mean, so...
Firestone, Frederick. Once you get you know, north where everything starts to be a little bit newer, you're going to see it everywhere.
You're going to see it anyway. Yeah.
I agree. Now, if you're down in central Denver, not so much. Those neighborhoods are already established and older. You're not going to see many there. But for the most part, the suburbs are going to have quite a few. So any of the suburbs you go to, even if you're out in Reunion, Thornton, you name it, most of those are going to have metro districts. So it's not necessarily unique to Erie. It's a new area issue. And Erie, of course, is a newer area for the most part.
Well, and speaking of, so Erie, rapidly appreciating and stable community.
Yeah.
So we've talked briefly. I moved in to my house in 2008. Bought my house for $250,000.
Yeah.
Could sell it for over $700.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy, right? So it's been about 60% increase
in the last 10 years. 60.1% over the last 10 years. In fact, the median house price in Erie in the last 10 years. 10 years ago, the median price was $313,000. Today, it's $789,000.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, in just 10 years. Unbelievable, and it's it's stable too. The things that add stability to a community's real estate prices would be jobs, employment. And we're right next to Boulder. We're right next to Boulder, and Broomfield also has quite a bit of engineering and high tech with Ball Aerospace.
Well, we keep building schools, so that's also a really big indicator on what's going on. Is if you continue to build schools, they continue to see that people are going to move in. Home prices are going to continue.
Well,
to
we're
rise.
one of the most rapidly growing suburbs there is, so it's not going anywhere anytime soon. Unfortunately, it's getting more expensive, but it's stable. I mean, if you're looking at your real estate from an investment standpoint, I mean, I couldn't have put the money that I put down on my last house into anything that would have grown better. I mean, we put down a little over $50,000 on our last house, lived in it 8 years, and when we sold, we had over $400,000 equity. Crazy. So stable, rapidly appreciating. You're not going to go wrong investing in a house in Erie.
No, and we even have some areas coming up, which are the townhomes. So because we mostly have single family homes here, we have some of the townhomes. They're just a great investment. I mean, you're going to be able to get in. They're going to continue to increase because people are also going to need a house as an investment property, right? They need a house while their new house is being built. These are great investments. Yeah,
I see that happen a lot of time. Well, people are buying a new house. They'll buy one of the townhomes to live in temporarily, then they'll keep it and turn it into a rental. I've actually got a couple investors just recently that have purchased 2 of the new paired homes and townhomes because they cash flow. They're rapidly appreciating. This guy's got his money parked in the stock market, and he says your real estate's just a better return right now. So what about the next one?
Well, the next one is tough. This one I do feel. Do you feel this one?
I do feel it. We've started to feel it more and more in the last couple of years too.
Yeah. So our water must just be made of gold here because we pay the price for it.
Yeah, we do pay the price for it. Well, Colorado water in general is pretty high. People would think, you got the Rocky Mountains there, you got all the snow melt off, but unfortunately California has owned the right. They've owned the rights to it since the 1800s. So most of the snow melt on the Rockies goes to Vegas and California, unfortunately. So we don't get it. It makes we don't get all of it. We get a little bit of it, but it makes our water a little more scarce. We are arid, high plains, climate. So
I do think that is the biggest thing. Just as a resident, everything else that we talk about is kind of personal opinion. I think across the board, we would all agree that our water is a little bit expensive.
It's a little higher. Well, and Erie gets it a little worse than some of the other suburbs because we just built a brand new state-of-the-art water treatment facility, and we don't quite have the tax base. I mean, we're getting there. There's a lot of homes coming in constantly. The tax base is growing exponentially every year, but when they built the new water treatment plant, the tax base just wasn't quite there, so they had to finance quite a bit of it with municipal bonds, and I think they're reflecting the cost of that in our water bills to pay that stuff back. So we do have high water bills here, but there's creative solutions. I see people doing artificial turf backyards. There's several smartphone apps now that you can connect that'll monitor your water usage and tell you when you get to a certain point, because the water bills here are on a tiered scale, so as long as you keep it below a certain point, you're going to be okay. And I think the way the new water meters work, they've got a radio frequency so that the meter reader doesn't actually have to stop at every house and read a meter. It just broadcasts the signal to his truck as he drives down the street. you can actually get a smartphone app that taps into that same signal.
That's pretty
So
cool.
yeah, so you can monitor your water spending and your water use on your phone and set it to notify you when you get to a certain level. So if you need to modify how you're watering the lawn or something like that, you can.
Plus,
do
we have a lot of teenagers here.
a lot of what?
Teenagers
Teenagers here
So
take
you-
long showers. Yeah, my kid, I can't drag that guy out of the shower. His mom's constantly yelling at him, "Get out of the shower! You've been in there too long."
I think so. That's part
I think
of
that's
it.
part of our water bill as well too. We definitely felt our water bill go up as our kids have gotten older.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
So it is what it is.
It is what it is. All right. So the next real big positive to Erie, it's an easy commute to high-paying jobs. I mean, we touched on that, being one of the driving factors on the real estate prices, but there are over 60 major IT and engineering firms
crazy.
within 15, 20 minutes of here. I mean, they say that Boulder, Colorado is the new Silicon Valley of the West. Erie is one of the closest bedroom communities that commute to that. So part of why we're growing is there's just tons of high-paying jobs here.
Well, and how Erie is, a lot of those jobs are North Boulder, and so we are kind of right there.
Catty corner to the north end of Boulder.
Exactly.
So we're super close. I mean, I can tell you that almost everybody that I move into town is an engineer, a software engineer, something along those lines. Yeah, a lot of high-tech jobs, high-paying industries here, and we're right here close to Google's here.
Yeah.
Amazon's got offices all around this place. IBM has
a huge facility.
Tons of big. I mean, I've got a list of the 60 that we're going to post a PDF link, a link to the PDF that lists it out, and we'll give a link to a couple websites to talk about all the high-paying jobs here in the area. So look down in the description below, and you can find that fleshed out in a lot of detail as well. Yeah.
So one negative to that, though, that because we're newer, I think we just don't have public transportation. So, we keep emphasizing how close everything is. The reason we're mostly doing it, yes, that's a value, but also because you have to drive there.
Yeah, you got to drive there. You're not going to ride your bike or your e-bike. You're definitely not going to walk to any of the employment. It's not quite like being in Boulder. I know a lot of guys down there have an e-bike, and that's how they get to work every day.
Right.
And you're just not going to quite do that here.
But Steve, I mean, even if you live Lafayette, Louisville, you're also not biking.
You're not
so
biking.
I mean, it's really the same unless you're in downtown Boulder.
I would agree.
You're not doing that anymore.
I would agree. I think there's maybe one bus stop here.
I think at the rec center.
At the rec center, there's a bus stop, and we definitely don't have a light rail that's made it here yet. The closest light rail station is up in North Thornton, or North Glen. So you got to drive down probably 3 exits to get to the park and ride for the light rail. So if you want to light rail it down to downtown, you're not going to be able to hop on it close. You're going to have to go do the park and ride thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, hey, we appreciate you guys tuning in for the first 5 things to consider about moving to Erie. We're going to follow this up with part 2, touch on another 5 things to consider on both the positive and the negative side. Look forward to seeing you guys next time around. Thanks for watching the video.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.